The year is 453 AD. Attila the Hun is dead. His empire should collapse. Rome learned this, China learned this, history expects this. But something strange happens. The Hunnic Empire does not fall apart. It does not scatter. It does not retreat east back to Mongolia. It disappears. Not conquered, not destroyed, not defeated in battle. Just gone. By 470 AD, no Roman document mentions them. No Chinese record tracks them. They evaporate. Evaporated things do not leave behind organized kingdoms. They do not leave behind graves. They do not leave behind millions of descendants. So where did they go? Archaeologists digging in Kazakhstan in 1994 found something impossible. A Hunnic grave, perfectly preserved, dating to 480 AD, 17 years after Attila died. This should not exist. The Huns were supposed to be gone, but it gets weirder. The skeleton inside was not buried like a typical Hunnic warrior. The grave goods were different. The burial orientation had changed. The weapons were evolving. Another grave nearby, same era, different style. Another. A whole cemetery of Hunnic graves, but they are not quite Hunnic. Dr. Irina Shingiray pulled the bones out and stared at them for 3 days. She realized something. These are not Hunnic graves ending. These are Hunnic graves transforming. But into what?
200 miles away, archaeologists found different graves, early Turkic graves, dating to 550 AD, 70 years after the Hunnic graves stopped. Same region, almost the same location, labeled as Turkic in the archaeological record. Where did these Turks come from? History says the Turkic Khaganate rose suddenly around 550 AD, a new power, a new people, a new empire. The geography does not make sense. The timing does not make sense. A completely different population appearing in the exact same territory where the Huns vanished just 70 years later? Dr. Shingiray had a thought. What if they were not different? What if the Turkic graves were the Hunnic graves' descendants? She ordered the only test that could answer. The DNA match nobody expected. She ordered ancient DNA testing on the bones. The Hunnic graves from 480 AD, Y chromosome, mitochondrial DNA, full genome sequencing. The Turkic graves from 550 to 650 AD, same tests. The lab technician called her at 2 in the morning. These are the same people, he said. What do you mean the same people? She asked. Genetically identical. Same markers, same ancestry signature. The DNA does not change between the Hunnic period and the Turkic period. Same population. Dr. Shingiray went silent. If the DNA was identical, only one explanation remained. The Hunnic Empire did not end. It transformed. It changed its name. It became Turkish, but the historical record showed nothing. Documents stopped mentioning Huns, then started mentioning Turks. No overlap, no transition. She found evidence of something else.
The bones told a story the documents did not. Hunnic graves from 400 to 480 AD had inscriptions, names, religious symbols, cultural markers. Graves from 490 to 510 AD showed something different. The inscriptions vanished. The old names disappeared. The religious symbols transformed. By 530 AD, the graves had completely different cultural signatures. The DNA was identical. Someone deliberately erased the Hunnic identity, Dr. Shingiray realized. Not the people, the identity. They kept the genes. They changed the name, the religion, the cultural markers, everything except the blood. Why erase your own history? Unless the Hunnic identity had become toxic. After Attila died, his reputation collapsed. Rome spread stories, barbarian, monster, scourge of God. The name Hunnic became poison. By 460 AD, being Hunnic meant shame across the civilized world. The surviving Hunnic populations, those who stayed in Central Asia, were stuck. They could not survive as Hunnic. The name carried too much baggage. So they did something radical. They stopped being Hunnic. They kept their lands, their power, their military dominance, their genetics. They adopted a new identity, a new name, Turkic. They rebuilt their empire from the ashes of the Hunnic one. The Turkic Khaganate was not a new empire. It was the Hunnic Empire reborn under a new name. Why do history textbooks treat them as separate? The answer lies in modern DNA. Dr. Shingiray ran another analysis. Genetic data from modern Turks, millions of samples from commercial ancestry databases, compared to ancient Hunnic remains. The markers matched. Not all modern Turks, but a significant percentage. Central Asian populations, Anatolia, millions of people carry Hunnic DNA. They think they are Turkish, they are Turkish. Culturally, linguistically, historically, genetically, they are Hunnic. They have no idea. A DNA test says Central Asian ancestry. That is often Hunnic ancestry, an empire they have never heard of, buried in their DNA, erased from cultural memory. If Hunnic DNA survived, the Hunnic Empire did not really end. It went underground,
genetic, invisible. Where did it hide? The DNA proves genetic continuity between Huns and Turks, confirmed. But one question remains. Did the Hunnic survivors conquer Turkic populations and absorb them? Or did Turkic populations conquer Hunnic survivors and assimilate them? DNA cannot answer that. Cultural records could. Historical documents could. Written evidence. Those records do not exist. Hunnic records stop. Turkic records begin. No overlap, no transition documents, no account of cultural blending from any contemporary source. Someone deleted the middle chapters of history. Chinese records from the 500s AD do not mention Hunnic-Turkic mergers. Byzantine documents do not describe the transition. Persian texts do not record it. The most dramatic transformation in Central Asian history happened silently, unrecorded, invisible. Either the historians were asleep, or someone hid what happened.
Here is what the evidence shows. The Hunnic Empire did not end. It transformed. DNA proves this. Hunnic populations survived, merged with local populations, adopted a new name, Turkic. They created an empire that stretched from Mongolia to Anatolia. The genetic legacy persists in modern Turkish DNA, in Central Asian populations, in millions of living people who have no idea their ancestry traces back to the Huns. The cultural identity, the Hunnic identity, that vanished completely. Was the erasure deliberate? Did surviving Hunnic leaders bury Attila's legacy and start fresh as Turkic peoples? Or was it gradual cultural evolution that nobody documented? DNA says they are the same people. DNA cannot tell the story of how they chose to become someone else. That story was never written down. It exists only in bones, in genetic markers, in the silence of history. 1,500 years later, millions of people carry that genetic secret in their DNA without knowing the empire hidden inside their blood.
Ray expanded her study. She collected ancient DNA from Turkic graves across the entire steppe, from Mongolia to the Black Sea, from 400 AD to 1200 AD. The results were unexpected. Not all Turkic peoples came from the Huns. The Central Asian Turks, the ones who built the Khaganate, their DNA matched the Hunnic graves exactly. The Siberian Turks had different ancestry. The Volga Turks had a different signature. The Gok Turks were a mix. The Hunnic legacy was one root, a major root, but not the only root. The Turkic world was built from many peoples: Huns, Scythians, Sogdians, Siberian tribes, steppe nomads from a dozen origins. They came together, they mixed, they created a new language, a new culture, a new identity. Modern Turkic peoples are a mosaic, not a monolith. One piece of that mosaic is Hunnic, and that piece is everywhere. Scientists identified a specific genetic marker that traces directly to the Hunnic core population, a unique Y chromosome signature, found in ancient Hunnic graves, found nowhere else in such concentration. They looked for it in modern populations: Turkey, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, in places the Huns never ruled. The Hunnic Empire collapsed, but the people did not die. They moved, they married, they spread their genes across continents. That Hunnic genetic marker appears in millions of people. Most have no idea. A man in Istanbul has it, a woman in Budapest has it, a family in rural Kazakhstan has it, a teenager in Berlin with Turkish parents has it. They are not Huns, culturally, linguistically, historically, but their blood remembers. The Hunnic Empire lives inside them, silent, invisible.